Hey everyone, I am here and I'm doing the thing. I am talking to you through a camera, and am I uncomfortable? Yes, I'm very uncomfortable, but that's okay because uncomfortable things make us stronger most of the time. I have been so incredibly thrilled that I get to have so many fun conversations in the comment section of my social media with you guys who are following the books that I've been posting for the year of 2023. Today, I thought I could continue that conversation by pulling my top 3 favorite books of 2023 and also the 3 books that I wasn't so crazy about, and maybe getting y'all's opinion and seeing what you thought if you read the book, or if it's on your TBR, or if you have no desire to read it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pull my first 3 books out and we will see what y'all think. So my third and second place books are extremely close, and I really feel like on different days of the week that they may even be switched. Like my second place would be my third place, and my third place would be my second place. But for today, my third place book is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book of the ACOTAR series. This book series went absolutely viral. This book series went absolutely viral in the last couple of years. I want to say it was 2 years ago that it really started to gain traction, but don't quote me on that. The only reason I say that is because when I went to Barnes & Noble last year, this already had its own table. The whole ACOTAR series had its own table within the fantasy section. I really feel like I'm late to the party on this, but I could not stop thinking about this book. I don't want to give away too much of the plot because if I tell you about this book, it might ruin the first book. So I want to push pause on giving too much information on it. But I will say this: if you are interested in a fast-paced, adventure-filled fantasy/romance, which I think they call romantasy now, this is a great series to pick up. I say that with one caveat. The last book is a little steamy, too steamy for me, that I ended up skipping a lot of the content in that book. This one was almost a little too steamy, and I ended up skipping some of the parts and scenes of that, kind of like when you watch a movie and you're like, I'm really uncomfortable and I want to fast forward through that. So I did. I fast forwarded through a lot of those scenes, but I don't feel like it detracted from the story in any way. I really love the relationship of the 2 characters that this follows, and it's a highly recommend for me if you're not too squeamish when it comes to the steamy scenes, or you're okay with skipping them to get to the meat of the story. This was excellent, so good, and not necessarily like 100% original, right? Like, it's not a book that will win any literary fiction awards, okay? It's candy. It's just delicious, and it's yummy, and it melts in your mouth, and you want more. In this book, delivered for me. Okay, so that being said, my second place book is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Now, this is the first novel of the entire ACOTAR series, and I'm going to tell you why I think this one beats out the second book, which I know is controversial for a lot of people who have read the series, because a lot of people love that second book. But for me personally, the world that I got to enter in when I first read this book, it was magical. You follow Feyre. She's a human girl who is the sole provider for her very destitute family. She's the youngest out of 3 siblings, and she still has to take care of everyone. And she doesn't complain. She just does it. Like, what's not to love about that? As she's hunting for her family in the middle of winter, she comes across what ends up being a fairy. And this is not a spoiler because you find out very early on. So I think the reason why I loved it so much was because it is a retelling of the Beauty and the Beast. Growing up, Beauty and the Beast was my favorite Disney classic movie of all time. I still could sit and rewatch it and get emotional. It's just so good. Maybe it's more of a nostalgic thing as to why I favor this book over the second one. I'm not sure. Either way, This book just made me so happy, and I think I devoured this book in like 2 sittings. Like, it did not take me long at all. The playlist I listened to with this book was gold. It just set the stage of this dark, delicious fantasy, and I was immersed in a fairy world. And I know that sounds so corny, because now I gave it a chance, and I'm so glad I did, because this came in at number 2 for me. And finally, book number 1 came as a complete shock. If I was surprised by the fantasy choices that I had this year, this one would have definitely not been anything I would have picked up by myself. But my mother-in-law gushed over it. So I picked it up, and I am so glad I did, you guys. Like, this book, 11 out of 10 stars. Like, 6 stars on Goodreads, okay? Like, it's far superseded anything that I could have ever expected in a novel. Book number 1 this year for me was The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. I love this book. Like, I get tingles when I think about it. I remember the characters like they were my friends. I was there, and I want to read just a little bit about the book. Like, I'm not going to bore you with the whole synopsis of it. I feel like Kate Quinn does a great job in giving you a little snippet of what the book is like to get you hooked into it. I am not a historical fiction person by any means. I tend to shy away from it because I feel like it's been so overdone for so long. But this one got me hooked, and it actually spurred me to read a couple more historical fiction books throughout the year. So let me just read just a little bit about it. 1947, the chaotic aftermath of World War II. American college girl Charlie St. Clair is pregnant, unmarried, and on the verge of being thrown out of her very proper family. She's also nursing a desperate hope that her beloved cousin Rose, who disappeared in Nazi-occupied France during the war, might still be alive. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Charlie is taken from America by her very well-to-do parents and sent over to the UK to get an abortion done because they don't think it's proper for her to have a child out of wedlock, as it was typical in the 1940s. However, she spins off and does the complete opposite of what her mother wants and runs off, and that is when she runs into Eve Gardner. Eve Gardner was a spy in the Great War, or World War I. That's a lot of wars, y'all. World War I. Tongue twister. Anyway, Eve, and Charlie become an unlikely pairing as they go across Europe trying to find dear sweet Charlie's sister cousin. And y'all, my heart in this book, I retched internally for these characters. I was emotional. I felt their needs and desires like they were my own, and I wanted to help them. If I could have just transported it and helped them with my Nancy Drew skills, y'all, I would have done it. I would have done it in a heartbeat. If you are not a historical fiction person, if you don't like reading, if books make you yawn, if you wish that you could run far away from libraries and bookstores, I still would recommend this book to you because it's that good. Number 1 of the year, hands down. It was no competition for me. Thank you, sweet mother-in-law, for my lovely book. And I loved this book so much, I asked my mother-in-law if I could keep her copy because I needed it on my bookshelf. Just do it. Stop thinking about it and just do it. Okay, and potentially the most controversial part of this whole conversation is the 3 books I did not care for this year. The third least favorite book of the year was not a bad book. Okay, it wasn't a bad book, but I think that the hype that surrounded the book made my expectations higher than they probably should have been, and that is my fault, but it still left me wanting more, and that book is The Fourth Wing. Now, again, not a bad book, not a bad fantasy book. I mean, you've got a kick-butt protagonist who has some, physical limitations. I wouldn't call them disabilities necessarily, but she definitely has physical limitations. And she's thrown into an adventure she does not want to partake in, and she ends up growing. You've got unwilling hero becomes hero because it's thrust upon her, and she has to adapt to survive. Has a very Hunger Games kind of feel mixed with higher fantasy. This is one of those books that has its own map in the front cover. which I love. I love a good map. I think it helps, especially in fantasy, if you do have a map to kind of go through and understand where the characters are, because my brain does not track all the time with the different names and the different locations and the different characters and the different species. Like, it can be a little overwhelming, but with a map, I feel like it helps clear up some of the ambiguity. I feel like it was okay, right? Like, it was okay. It was good. It was an enjoyable read. I finished it quickly. It's a big book. It has, let's see how many pages it has. 498 pages. And the font, I mean, it's not huge by any means, but it's not teeny tiny either. So it's a doable read. I had no idea what this was about going in. I had no idea it was about dragons, even though, yes, I'm fully aware that there is a dragon on the cover right there too. I know, okay, now, but I just didn't pay attention to the cover. And it was sold out everywhere. It took me forever to get this book in 2023, but I finally got it. And I believe it was Macy who told me that I needed to read it. And so I ordered it and I picked it up, and I'm glad I did. Not as good as ACOTAR to me. Despite it being so popular, I rated this like a 7 maybe out of 10. So I give it like a 3.75 star, maybe a 4 star out of 5, but it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Didn't hate it, but it wasn't something that I was just fangirling over. Second least favorite book. And this one is also a little controversial, I think, especially if you're a Sarah J. Maas fan, and especially if you like the Throne of Glass series. I tried to read Throne of Glass, and I did. I finished Throne of Glass, and I really liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it, and I thought, this is a great epic fantasy starter, right? Like, follows an assassin who was stuck in a labor camp as part of her punishment of being caught by the king, and then is brought back by the king to be a competitor in a game to the death situation at the castle. And there she uncovers a lot of secrets, and it becomes almost like this mystery slash action adventure with a little bit of a romance. I wouldn't even call it really a romance, but maybe like an attraction subplot. But I felt like Selena, the protagonist of this series, was a little harder for me to relate to and to connect to in comparison to Feyre. So that being said, I picked up Crown of Midnight, and I wanted to like this so bad, but I didn't, you guys. I didn't like this book. I struggled to finish it, and maybe that's saying something about the time that I read it. Sometimes when you pick up a book, you may not be in the mood for that genre, or maybe even dealing with these characters like Selena was for me. So maybe I just need to give it another shot, and I think I'm going to try to reread the series in 2024. I feel like this has hype for a reason, and after coming off of ACOTAR and really enjoying the ease of reading a Sarah J. Maas book, I feel like I need to give this another shot. But didn't love the book. Maybe it's my fault. If you have read it, tell me it gets better. Encourage me to read the book again. Encourage me to read the series again. I have the first two, and then I stopped buying them because I was like, I just don't want to invest the money in this anymore. So let me know your thoughts about this one, and whether or not you agree, disagree, and whether or not I should try to pick this up in 2024. See, I'm just getting tired thinking about doing it. Open mind, right? Okay. And the worst book of the year, which will not come as a surprise if you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I know so many people who love this book. And I think I can see why. Like, the environment, the setting is very, very immersive as far as like originality in creating a very fairy tale world. It definitely feels like you are stepping into a Hans Christian Andersen story, or even a Brothers Grimm story. It's very fantastical in that way. Other than that, you guys, I don't know what the hype is. I'm so confused. Why do people love this book so much? And if you are one of those people, educate me. Like, I want to know. I want to know, what did I miss? Oh, God. I cannot formulate. Okay, my problem with this book is that the main character is very one-dimensional. The romance subplot was lame, an enemies to lovers kind of thing, and I was not digging it. And I like enemies to lovers. This one just fell so flat for me. I cannot remember the characters' names. I can't remember the name of the mystical land. I can't remember the name of the cruel prince. I don't remember any of it. And I read this one pretty recently, like within the last quarter of the year. There is a portal fantasy kind of element where they're able to bounce back and forth between the fairy world and the human realm. She is training to become a knight, but there's a bunch of different roadblocks in her way. I just don't care. I tried really hard to, and I really wanted to like it because this was another one that popped up in my Instagram reel feed all the time. So many people recommended this book that I follow, and I just wasn't digging it. I think I rated this a 2.5 out of 10. So if I was to rate this on Goodreads, it'd be a 1 star. It was that bad. Maybe a 1.5. Maybe on a good day when I've had enough coffee and it's the first thing in the morning and my house is quiet. That is the headspace I would need to be in order to rate this book higher. This is nothing on the author. Evidently, she's got like a great following of people who loved this book. One of the girls I followed on Book Talk, she rated this, I think, a 4-star book. So it's very subjective. I feel like it's very polarizing. So you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. If you've read it, let me know if you love it or you hate it. Well, we did it. First video in. I hope that we get to talk more about the books coming up in 2024. Please leave your suggestions in the comments because I really would love your input on what I should read this upcoming year. I am always down to add more books. So thanks you guys for watching. If any of you watched, may just have been my mom. Hi, Mom. I did it. I'm brave and I love you. Thanks you guys. Bye.